So
Ja sen married sen. Me and Senti. Hey brother, beloved brother. Come to your sisters. Dua asar, merit asar. Dua asar, nehast asar. Generations to asar, come back to us, be resurrected asar. Dua asar, unefer netera. Adorations to Asar, the beautiful existence. Dua Asar, Abdu. Adorations to Asar, the innermost being in Abdu. Dua Asar, Nebdeta. Adorations to Asar, Lord of forever. Dua Asar, Sutedhe. Adorations to Asar, King of eternity.
Dua Saruna Vedra Dua Saradu Dua Sarada Dua Sar Sutenghe
Uja, does everyone have sound? Testing 1, 2, 3.
Ni Sabai, we have sound. Heta.
Okay, we'll begin with opening prayers. You may unmute yourself and turn your camera if you would like. Uja, everyone, and Dua. Tedi nesu netera anpu wepwat neta jase bedkeru ka kape sinetera di makeru.
Tebdina
Sunatara
sunatara
Anpu Apat Nepta Jasur Perkeru Kakapet Sinata Arima Keru
Otebdina sunatara anpu apot nepta jasa erkeru kakapet sineteradi makeru.
Tebdina
Tina
sunatara
Sunatara Anpu
Anpu
Apat Nepta
Nepta
Jasur Perkeru
Ka
Kakapet Sinata
Sinatari
Arima Keru
Duasar unefer netera, duasar herabdu, duasar nebjeta, duasar sutenhe,
Duasar
Duasar Nefanetara
Duasar
Duasar Herabdu
Duasar
Duasar Nebjeda Duasar Sutane
amasu apaneter, sauksu emete paneter, aduanuma, kedipaharu.
Amasuat Panater Sauk Suminitin Panater Aduanama Kedi Paharu
Om hete, hete, hete.
Om Ete Bete Bete
Puja again, everyone. Greetings to this occasion. I thought about doing this a couple of months ago, I guess, or a month ago, because I've been trying to remember last year to do it, and then we had a lot of things going on. And one of the things which I'm going to talk about today, that my mind was totally immersed, and just trying to keep up with the regular duties, and also preparing for the conference. So, but the year before, actually, we haven't done one of these for like about 3 or 4 years. So it just kind of keeps on escaping. We used to do these like at the beginning, once a year, like for the first 2, 3, 4 years. And what I'm talking about is the Kemet University anniversary, and it's like a commemoration. The Kemet University started in 2014 in October, in the fall of 2014, and I think I've told the story before. I had been thinking about it at least 2 years before actually getting into it and doing it, and I thought about some kind of way to have a program online, using which at the time was they call them LMS systems now, learning management system. But there really wasn't anything. There were a couple of things that were starting at the time, but the big things were in large universities that had these educational systems, very expensive. And so there were a few things starting to come up as plugins for WordPress, but they were kind of limited in some of the things that I wanted to do. So I was thinking about it, and then Sar Jody said that we got into talking about this, and I said, okay, well, let me find somebody who can put it together according to your specs. And then he found someone, an IT, a lady who worked in IT, and I told her, I want the site to do this, this, and this, and that, and it gradually came together, and it's pretty much what you see as now. There have been a few changes, but basically it is what you see operating there. And of course, it could be improved, it could be better, it could be smoother, et cetera, et cetera. But we're thankful for the things that we have, and that we can have something that can actually be workable. We're grateful for that. um, especially in our situation with the fact that we're not all in one city, and also in the developments of, especially over the last 2 years, really over the last 10 years, if you're reading my books, but really especially in the last 2 years, the purposeful disintegration of society, imposition of police state, et cetera, et cetera. So that has caused there to be, great strife and consternation in society, forcing people to go online and for various purposes. But this is perhaps something that has worked out for our benefit in the context that actually we were doing this for years before this supposed crisis came up in the year 2020. So we didn't really lose a beat in anything. We were not really harmed, either financially or in our capacity to put out the teachings, as we were doing it all along anyway. And we have a hybrid system, basically, that we have an online program, but we also have a dedicated, at least one dedicated in-person program per year, which is the conference. And before and that was sort of disrupted by what happened. But before Kemet University came online in 2014, we had been doing the annual conferences since like 1997. But the shall we say extended program beyond that was really more something of independent education, something more of not even so much apprenticeship, but like I'm going to talk about today. But it was more something that I would communicate with aspirants on the phone, or maybe every once in a while we would do something locally, and the books that have been coming out steadily for 25 years, 26 years, since 1994. And so that was the extent of the program that we had before 2014. And but I was looking for a way to kind of intensify it and to make it more structured, and also to have a better kind of interaction with people on and using the books. Basically, the Hieroglyph translation series, Egyptian Book of the Dead Hieroglyph translation series, was a specific book series dedicated to being able to be used in the Kemet University. And as it turns out, as I'm going to talk about in a few minutes, the workload has been such that many of the lofty ideas that had gone into, we have this class and that class, and basically we ended up concentrating on like about 3 or 4 classes to, of course, do them, really well and consistently on an ongoing basis. And so I'm going to talk about that a little bit also. So before Kemet University came in, it was basically that kind of program, which I did not think was optimal because of the limited contact time. And working over the phone is one thing. It's some of you who have been with us for a couple of decades. We talked over the phone sometimes for an hour or two, and going over issues. And when you have problems, we talk about it, and we discuss the teachings. Remember, we used to have long conversations with Sar Ratem over the years, and with others of you. But it's not the same as being able to meet and class and see each other. And of course, online program is not the same as being in person. But I think it's a good adjunct I don't think it should be the main or only way of imparting the teaching, but I think it's a good adjunct in a hybrid program like I was talking about. And so now we have the hybrid program, and we are still intending to, like I said, we've been disrupted with the in-person program, but we intend to resume that next summer. So moving the conferences from the winter to the summer, to the Kemetic New Year time. And also there are periodic trips to Kemet, and as long as the social order and the economics, the economy doesn't break down, I suppose those will continue to be done as well. And that's another kind of component of dissemination of the teaching. So in 2014, we did put it together. It had a couple of issues, but I think by 2015, it was the final version the way you see it now was developed. And so there are two sites that that you may know of, which I don't have on here. I thought I had put in the let me see how I have this here. Here, it's a little out of sequence. So these are the main sites. There are two sites for Kemet University. One is like an information site for kind of everyone to kind of go to for general information about courses and programs and different things like that. And then there is another site, and that's this one, the kemetuniversity.com or egyptianmysteries.org. And there's information here about the courses. And then when somebody signs up, they can come here to the Asaru College. So the idea is, it's like following the idea of a university and colleges. You have different colleges in a university. Different, like you have a college of forestry or college of mathematics, a college of chemistry, and on the campus of the university. So the university is like an empire, and then you have all the little fiefdoms within the empire. And I use that word particularly because a lot of the deans in these different colleges, they think that they are like little emperors in their little area. But I don't want to go into those stories, which partly is what pushed me away from going into academia. So you come here to Asaru College when you actually want to go register. In this site, you can put in the application and get information and things like that. And here you go to start courses and programs. And here you can find information about the different programs that are ongoing. And like I say, basically there are three main large programs that we run on a weekly, monthly basis. And well, that I run, I should say. Sebaja has a couple of things that she has going now also. So, and one of them you see there is the virtual Kemet tour program. And that's, how long have you been doing that now? Since June of this year. And the temples of Kemet.
That's online.
All right. And so we have been doing the initiation. And that's essentially the level 1 initiation studies. And we have, I could go into the class itself so you can see, but I think I've done that before. Essentially, it is a virtual classroom and a discussion forum. And I got some of these ideas I got from when I did a master's program at It was at two universities. I switched from one to the other. Um, one was Troy University, and the other one was Thomas Edison, which is now also a university. And so I got some of the ideas for the online program of what they were doing to incorporate into how to put this together. So it's not dissimilar to how it was at least 20 years ago, because that's when we did the or 20 years ago. So we're now trying to incorporate some virtual aspects to the program, but that has not really come online very much yet. But that is kind of where the next level of things to go to. So we got some partial things going, but as far as integration into the classes, into programs, that has not really occurred much yet. So in addition to these programs, we also have, for the last 5 months or so, I've been doing Kemetic Diet and COVID monthly updates, and also Maat discussion and action talks, which I think started a little before, like 6 months ago or something. And we have not had a Maat discussion meeting because we've been very busy and some issues came up this month. So hopefully we will be resuming those. But those are not official, paid programs of those are like pro bono or community service programs that we're doing. So basically, we have an initiation program for those who are coming into the studies, who are beginning their studies, and that usually takes people anywhere from 2 to 3, 4 years to get through. And then they can go into, when they complete that, they are considered as being fully initiated into the Egyptian mysteries, into the Kemetic wisdom and culture. Then they have the capacity to be inducted into the initiation into a SAR course or the Temple of Aset. And there actually is another program here that's not listed, right? Which is the Clergy Studies program, and that program is really reserved like for a more advanced or mature, and it's more like a by invitation only kind of program, where I would say that the most frank and open discussion of the teachings are presented. So, but any of these programs, if they are followed to their advanced expression, we think constitutes a movement not dissimilar to, or at least in keeping with, the ancient Egyptian mystery tradition as it might occur in our times. And that is what the purpose and the mission and what the desired goal was from the beginning. This is a sample schedule of the programs, how they occur on a monthly basis, on a weekly basis. And one of you said a few months ago that you thought that we had kind of achieved a good balance in the number of classes, the kinds of classes, because they all kind of hit like a different note of the teachings. And so, and there's enough contact time so that we don't bombard you like having classes every day or something. And also the since some of it is clergy studies, some of it is Temple of Osiris studies, some of it is Temple of Set studies, some of it is uh, foundational initiatic studies. And so we have different perspectives going on, and allows everyone to grow with the teachings, and then get a little break from us, because we're not like bombarding every day, and so you might feel overwhelmed. So I thought that was a nice comment, because it means that it's possible to help the teaching be received and assimilated. Of course, to the capacity of the person who is engaging the studies. The ancient university. Now this was a little out of sequence, so let me go back to the top here. Did ancient Egyptians go to college? Not many kids in ancient, this is an article I found, which I thought was okay. Not many kids in ancient Egypt went to school, and even fewer kids got to college, which is the way it is now in our present time when they grew up. In the time of the pharaohs, there wasn't any university in Egypt or anywhere in the ancient world. Advanced students worked with professional scribes, learning their business as apprentices. But after Alexander conquered Egypt during the Hellenistic period, about 300 BC, the Greek rulers of Egypt built a university. Expert scholars and students could work there, and there was a big library. And you see a picture here of kids, and they're studying. They have like a desk, and they're sitting at the desk, and they have like a writing, a scribal palette in their left hand, and a pencil in their right hand, and they're writing. And the teacher is standing over them and looking at them, and they're learning how to write hieroglyph text, actually, which would be the hieratic version of text, or at least either hieratic or cursive hieroglyphic. So in that sense, it was like it is now. I was thinking that I remember when I learned how to read and write, and it was painful and annoying to learn how to read and write. And this is, of course, early, like 6 years, 7, 8 years old, like that. But once you learn it, then it's good, and you need that really for life. Once you have that, then the next level of education is about cognition, comprehension, critical thinking. And these are the areas, these last areas that I mentioned, these are the ones that have been pretty much eradicated from modern schools. Obviously, because the powers that be don't want people to have critical thinking, cognitive abilities, philosophical insights. And so possibly it might be possible that I think it probably went on a little bit longer, but civics was taken out of high schools, like after Subida and I graduated high school. And in college, the humanities pretty much have been eradicated, from my understanding, as a required program of study, and replaced with things like political science or other areas of study that serve the power structure of the society. And of course, this is what we try to incorporate here at Kemet University, which is you don't get just the information about the teachings, about the spiritual philosophical teachings, but you get well-rounded ethical, secular wisdom and understanding for a well-rounded, well-adjusted personality development. How old were Egyptian kids when they went to school? If you were going to be a scribe, you started school at 4 and went to school until you were about 15. What the Egyptian schools looked like. The ancient Egyptian school looked a lot like modern schools, with benches for the children and a big chair for the teacher. The walls of the mud brick classroom from the Hellenistic period were plastered and decorated with quotes from the Odyssey. That's a Greek classic. About behaving and working hard. And this is an image of an Egyptian school. I guess it's from the Ptolemaic period, which is the Greek period. The period when the Greeks had conquered Egypt and were in control of Egypt. The oldest university is on Earth in Egypt. The research team found 13 identical lecture halls lining a large public square in the ancient city's eastern section. And the ancient city is Alexandria. A nearby Roman theater, discovered a half century ago, now assumes new meaning as a possible part of the ancient university. And I remember I went there back in the year 2000, and I believe I went to this place. But this was before, so this is 4 years before the formalized discovery of the university, or of the usage of this location as a university. But I went to a place similar. It wasn't exactly like this, I just remember. But this gives an idea of like an amphitheater or a lecture hall in a modern university. And I remember, I can remember the name of the hall. What was the name of that big, huge GPA? It was something that the big building, University of Florida. We had thousands of people, and that was wild. And so the idea is that universities, colleges as we know them today, had their beginning in Egypt in this Hellenistic period in Alexandria. However, before that period, the education was not carried out in this format. Although I think this is not a bad development if it was done in conjunction with the previous model, which is basically more of an apprenticeship model. Well, actually, it was basically you go to school to learn reading and writing, and then you go into apprenticeship. That was the previous system. So if you could do that plus or in addition to or alongside with an ancient university type system as well, I think that would be a complementary development. Education prior to the Greek period. Reading and writing starts at 4 or 7, as 4 or 7 years of age to the early teen years. Then the child would move into apprenticeships that would last for years. Then apprentice would become a journeyman. A journeyman is a modern term. It means someone who has been trained in a skill craft, and then they can become either independent professionals, or they can work with other professionals for their skills. Went over these already. So in the ancient times, the university or Perdonk, or House of Life, was the temple. And here is an example of one of the temples. This is the temple of Heteru at Dendera. And one of the subjects that was pursued here was medical science. And this is a healing center at Dendera Temple. And you can see here, there's a central area, and then on the sides there are what look like wards or like rooms. Here it looks like a water container, perhaps because the well is on the left. It's not in the picture, but it's on the left. So water could be brought here, and then it could be accessed from the inside of the building. So this is what is left of the mud brick foundation, but this would be a covered building. And I remember, well, the last time we went, I went walking through there until I was called back out of the area. So it was interesting to look at it. But just to give you the idea that the university was a place where, the ancient temples, especially the temple complexes. And what I mean by temple complex is that it is a place that had a mud brick. It is a place that had a mud brick enclosure wall, and you would have several buildings within the precinct of the temple, and this could be one of them, a healing center. You can have an area for studies, reading and writing. There was of course, to the right of it, there's that you see there on the right, there is a birthing center. So there are several disciplines that were practiced, and of course the main one was the spiritual sciences that was engaged. This is an image. I guess we have black hair, so it must have been like 20 years ago. Yeah, even Tsar Khepra has black hair too, so it must have been back there. And look at Tsar Setna. So we all have black hair, so it must have been like 20 years ago or something. And this is I'm trying to think of where the exact venue is that this occurred.
Oh, it's Atlanta.
Well, it looks like it's Atlanta, but I'm trying to remember which specific.
Either the center from the beginning,
and we have these are our old laptops.
Or the park we rented that time.
The red top mountain. You notice our old computers? These are the old tablet, the first version tablet types, heavy and square. So probably early 2000s. In any case, this is us teaching, and by the good graces of Tsar Setna, Tsar Khanum, they prepared this facade that we used for many years. And this is like it was kind of almost new. And they used it in Atlanta when they were doing teaching as well. But this is one of our in-person programs, conducting lecture and doing presentation. You can see on the right, there is a slide screen, a presentation screen. And this is, I think, back when we used the old slides, the old, before the PowerPoint days. And so I like this kind of picture because it gives an impression of us working and disseminating the teaching, and a two-way street where people listen, interact, and the teaching is elevated. The experience of the divine is opened, to the extent possible, and it's actually a joyful experience to do that, and to engage the practices, and to engage with people who are interested in the teaching. So here I was going to ask for anyone who, I think about 2 or 3 students were lined up to give your thoughts, impressions of your experiences with the Kemet University over the last however long. And then anyone else who would like to speak may do so afterwards as well. Heads up, anyone who is first to come on?
Ujasabai, if Bastu Yashi can come on first to speak about the Temple of Aset experience, she might have to leave earlier. Hita.
Okay, please do.
Uja, Bastiasha, can you hear me? Uja, can you hear me?
Hey, Santi, we can hear you. Hita.
Okay.
But we cannot see you though. What happened?
I'm not able to turn my camera on, unfortunately, but Dua, to all for this gathering and celebration of the Kemet University and the wonderful teachings. I definitely wanted to just speak about my experience with the Temple of Aset, which is what I've been initiated into. And it was definitely a holistic spiritual process in integrating the teachings on various levels. We have the lower level, and then more of a metaphysical and embodying the teachings level of the journey. And that, for me, went over several years in the context of navigating time and space responsibilities, balancing that with my commitment to complete the studies. And it's just been wonderful to have intensive review and integration of them on different levels. The method of organizing the course in which different students share their experiences and how they interpret the teachings. And then we have a Sabaima and Sabaja that help us to integrate it correctly and help us to reflect upon our reflections and continue as we do that and continue into time and space, just really holistically integrating them. Again, going from more of a basic understanding on a more mythical level to actually embodying it in all aspects of being. And so as I did complete my studies and I'm now participating in the Thursday night Ushet program with other Bastu or initiates of the Temple of Aset, it's just wonderful to continue to reflect upon it. I actually do personal trips to the Temple of Aset, which also accentuate the teachings that I've learned in the initiatic process with Sabai. If I have questions, I can come back and have those answered with just continued reflection in this process. So it is an integral process, and it is a lifelong process, and it's just wonderful and magnificent. So Tua for allowing me to share. Hata.
Okay, Dua. One more thing. What was your experience before the Kemet University started? Were you with us before? Or, do you have time?
Nee. I was I studied with a few of the other priests in the temple. I studied with Unut Unshin. We did weekly shedis for a few years with Bastu Harit, Shemzarit, and then subsequently I also studied with Unut Anpu with weekly shedis, and we covered Sarian Resurrection. And so I did a few things. I also attended the annual conferences and some of the other trainings like the Glorious Light meditation and the Egyptian yoga posture and spiritual system. Hatep.
Okay, do it. Yeah, who is next?
Aspirin Jasmine, if you'd care to share about Kemet 101 EM1, is that?
Uja, I can. Yeah, I can. I came to Kemet 101 from the Thursday Temple of Aset devotionals. So I would attend those regularly. And I love hearing Basu Yashi's voice because she facilitates that very well. And just going day after day, week after week, and really diving into the Temple of Aset reflections and hearing from the Bastu and then the other participants really drew me to want to dive in deeper with Kemet 101 and Egyptian Mysteries 1. And so eventually I registered, and it was a smooth registration process, and there was lots of material to sink my teeth into. And I really like the format of the class where the modules were released in a steady pace, and being able to do my own reflections on the lessons and then come together in a weekly chat has been really great. And I like how people of all levels are in that weekly chat meeting, and getting feedback on our different posts is also really great. I'm really appreciative of the online format and the self-pacing. My other for and working, I'm still trying to make sure I do everything at a steady pace, and appreciate the Bastu, just encouraging me to do a little bit at a time, and just being diligent and just always there to pick up as I need to. And so, yeah, I really love the courses, and I love the progression. And I know that when I can still stick with it, and when things settle down, or I have even more time, or create more time in my day and week, I can dive in as deep as much as I want to, and it's always there. So it's been a very never experience, and I'm glad to be on this journey. And I'm seeing myself on here for decades. I want to get to being decades um, in in the temple as well. Atep.
Okay, do it for that. Who is next?
Shemzu and Nutert, would you care to share about your experience with the Temple of Asar course?
Hatep.
Oh, before you do that, Aspirant Jasmine, since you're speaking, we forgot to ask you to turn on your camera. Can we see you briefly?
As I finished, I remembered, I didn't turn my camera on. Here I am.
Okay, do it. Okay, go ahead.
Okay, neat. So I guess I will just begin by saying this online format is really what's enabled me to participate in the teachings at all. Really.
Wait, camera.
Camera. Okay. How do I do that?
At the bottom of the screen, is it on yours? Or on the top? You move your mouse around the screen, it should pop up. No?
Ujishim's
Oh,
in the church. You might need to share on in the URL bar. You might need to allow access to share your camera.
oh, okay.
It's,
There you go. What's up?
What's up? Right. So, I'm, out in Washington State, and just, don't have the opportunity very often to come to where many of you are physically located. So I've just been really grateful to have this opportunity to connect with everybody through this way. I started with level 1 in 2014, whenever it first started, 2014, I think. And, that gave me I felt like a really great foundation, teaching me the basics of Chatat Natur and the different paths of yoga, and the different Nateru, and just everything. So then when the Temple of Asar started, that just really gave me the opportunity to take it that much farther, take the myths that much farther, have it become experiential through the different meditations and all of the different lessons. Some of them can be, really quite intense in terms of the changes that can occur, within yourself and just around you. It's just been really great to take everything further, the teachings of Ma'at and everything, increasing purification, more awareness, and really the visual component is really great for the Temple of Asar, being able to feel as if you're physically going into the temple, and sort of engaging with it that way. And I look forward to that continuing. It's been a really amazing experience.
Okay, Dua for those words. Like I said, we're trying to incorporate more of the 360 experience.
I just wanted to share since Shamsu Anatur, she's part of the conference committee, and so Suleiman's going to be talking about the book shortly, the book launch, and that book is the basis of last year's conference, and we're going to be starting replays of those shortly, leading up to the conference, with part 2 at this coming conference. So Shamsu Anatur is one of the conference co-chairs, and heading the contact person. If you're not already registered for the conference, you can contact her. It's going to be online, and I heard there was a deadline coming up at the end of the month, I think, to get a discount. The end of the month. So this, if anything, just reach out to her and put a face to the name as well. That's it. And do it.
Yeah, Dua for those words. Anyone else would like to say anything before we move on to have some comments?
Phoenix, are you available to speak now? Of your overall experience?
Uja Sabai Ma Sebaja. So my discovery of the temple was from just searching for a deeper meaning of life, really just figuring out how to be able to have a relationship with God coming from a Christian background. That was something that was lacking. So I actually ended up, I'm not sure how I came across Dr. Muata Ashby at the time, but just from doing research, really, I came across an article, I think, about the book, The Egyptian Book of the Dead, Volume 1. Unbeknownst to me at that time, I didn't know that was a more advanced book, but I ended up purchasing it and I read it. And just from the beginning, within the first couple of pages, it resonated with me. And I felt like I had finally found understanding to what I needed to know in order to have a deeper relationship with God. I don't believe that book had in there about the courses, however. So
I had figured out how to get a list of all the books, and that's when I ended up ordering the Little Book of Shatat Neter. And in that book is where it talked about the Temple of Aset and um, the being able to pretty much sign up to take the courses. And as Aspirant Jasmine said, it was a very seamless process. Being able to enroll everyone, I believe it was Bastu Baket that I had talked to initially, but she was very inviting, very open. And then once I started coming to the courses and taking the classes, um, it did come as overwhelming, but it wasn't in a way to where I felt like I couldn't handle it, for one, and then for two, it was something that I didn't want to do. Like, I kept getting drawn in. Later, discovering that that was, the goddess within, just continuing to draw me into the teachings, allowing the teachings to, pour into the heart. So in going through the Egyptian 101 course and completing it, I definitely resonate with the essential teachings, the teachings that are important for us to live by, just in a practical sense, and then just most importantly following Ma'at, and then continuing to flow in through that course. I am now in the Temple of Aset, and the Temple of Aset definitely puts you in a space of learning how to detach from the worldly aspect of things and going beyond to, rediscover and become one with the divine. Being in the weekly chats with Sabai Ma and Sabajah is definitely never for me. I tell people within like my family that both of you are my psychologists because I receive so much insight, and it's in such a never way. It isn't the wrong way. I'm not being taught incorrectly, like how, the teachings of society can be. And having been a personality once living in that, and now seeing what's really true and how to be able to really live, and that being taught from Sabai Ma and Sabajah, it's definitely never. It's sometimes, the ego can push back, but again, being in the Temple of Aset and learning more deeply about detachment, definitely working through that to be able to cultivate that attribute. So I just want to say much dua to Sabai Ma and Sabajah for all of the years that you've committed and put into this to make it what it is. And dua to the temple as well. Although I have not met anyone physically, energetically, I feel like I'm close to everyone here. I do consider everyone my sin and sentees. So much dua. Head up.
Okay, do it for all that. Very, very nice words.
Pooja, I just wanted to share a little bit about Aspiring Phoenix while she's on, to say much due to her also that, I think when you came into the courses online, I think, I think everyone was really appreciative of what was labeled as your transparency and your honesty and where you are and where you were and what you were working on and bringing that to the course. So it made it very open and also applicable to other aspirants for them to be able to, have their own process through your process. So, do for bringing that level of aspiration to the coursework to the Kemet University and to the temple, and that certainly, uplifts it and helps it to, I guess, do what it needs to do and what's the intention about it is. So. I guess I'm saying it takes two to tango. So to you also. And also, I just wanted to share, as for Phoenix, is also very much like a part of the ongoings of the temple, even though, as she indicated, she's not physically met anyone. Um, and by that, I mean she assists with all the notices that go out. I believe you can correct me if I'm wrong, Smart Phoenix, or us to Bucket of you can, and you can add to what I'm sharing too, because you probably know more what she does. But I think she's part of the notices that go out. She's part of the Sunday devotional as well, um, facilitating that, every Sunday. So, she's woven her way into the Ma'ari related to the, aspects of the temple that Sivama and I don't have to put a lot of time and energy in because of so many of you who must have had from Phoenix that facilitate those aspects of it. So do it.
Do a Sebajah. It's it.
Anyone else would like to say words? Otherwise, I'm going to have some concluding comments.
Go ahead, Buster.
So real quickly, just wanted to add a little bit of to what everyone already shared about the university. Me, Dua also, Aspirin Phoenix, and everyone that shared before me. Aspirin Phoenix just saying that she never met anyone in person. I'm like, wait a minute, is she sure? She's so intertwined that it feels like that energetically that she's been a part of this group for a long time. I myself have been a part of the university since its inception. I was about 2 years or so into the teachings at the time, and I had joined Untitled Chapter weekly devotional meetings, and he gave me my first book to read, which was the Introduction to Shaitan Etter, and he required me to do a 6-page essay before joining his group, and that set the foundation for me into the teachings. And so as soon as the university was announced, I signed up immediately. And I took the Egyptian Mysteries course to the Temple of Aset course. And everyone I shared for so far what the courses embody, which is absolutely important for our thinking to join in the university. And because I appreciate it so much, I wanted to share one of the most beneficial, or one of the most I appreciate in the university, and that is the mental training. Mental training that cannot be gained just reading the books on your own. And a part of that training is Sebama and Sebajah giving feedback on your post, which is essentially giving feedback on your thought pattern, so you can adjust, adapt accordingly. So I thought that was extremely necessary to mention that this course over, this university over the different courses that I've taken, it remains like one of the base tenets of the university is to have the proper way to think, the proper way to feel, and the proper way to act. I can't believe it's 7 years because it's so intricately a part of your lifestyle that it just seems like this is what we should be doing, is to attend a university where, we take master's degree 2 years and it's done, bachelor's degree 4 years and it's done, but this is an ongoing process that will lead you to knowledge of self. And yes, this is my university that I'll continue to be in. So I just wanted to share those thoughts about what really happens on the personal level to someone that comes in these teachings and the university. Of course, Dua Sebama, Dua Sebajah, for continuing, like Aspirin Phoenix says, to be our psychologist of the teachings. In a sense, that is what the mental training is about. That's it.
Okay, do it for all that. Very, very positive words.
Anyone else?
Yeah, anyone else would like to speak?
I'll just speak to Puja, Sebaja. I just wanted to share my appreciation. Sibima had long been trying to get me to do courses online, and I long resisted, which he likes to remind me of every so often. So it took me a while to want to engage the webinars, engage the online, because I always said myself I'm more of a in-person people person, you know, like the 10 courses and at universities myself in person. And I saw Sibima, you know, did an online degree course for himself. Of course, a few books came out of that course that he did online, like a university course, and I was like struck by, you know, how many people are doing this process. So it took me a while to decide to dip my toes in, so to speak, and to try it out. And I was encouraged after I think I did the 2018 Serpent Power, and you know, and then in the physical spaces, and then it was just like so much to accommodate, so many pieces, and then things wouldn't play, and things weren't turning on, and so after that, I think I settled on, you know, just initiating the process. So I do appreciate that his you know, working to set it up online. Also now that, you know, provides a place that, you know, I've been able to partake of as well. So that's appreciated. He did mention about the trip to Kemet, so I did want to share that we do have spaces left. We do have an upcoming trip um, in March, the end of March, like spring breakish time in March, and specifically, you know, that time was chosen as opposed to the summer, because well, actually, because Bastiaku will be on spring break in that time frame, and so she facilitates the trip with me, so she would be able to have that time off to do it. And also, it's cooler part of the year, hopefully not too cold, because the summer trip 2019 was way too hot with climate change and everything. It was like really hot. So if anyone's interested in that, you can reach out to Bastuku Sarong for myself. And we look forward to, you know, the process and the online virtual trip course. Basically, it's going through a lot of different aspects of the temples where we'll be visiting. So we have like a deeper insight and understanding. And Sebama gives that analogy of plugging into the temple. So we are looking forward to that process. We've had a couple of other groups that have gone earlier in the year, and with the word is that, you know, COVID has not really been a problem. They've had very good trips, notwithstanding the summer heat. So that's why we decided to do it in the season, and so the prices are a little higher because of that as well too. But it is going to be, you know, a very nice trip. So if you're interested, you can let Bastu Ku Aswapunk know about it. And really, you know, like the part of it is the online courses, and you know, like the clergy course that is ongoing. Like those who are in that course, no one from there has come on and spoken, but the aspirants in there, most of them, many of them have been part of, you know, the temple for many years, and they have in the past like put on the conferences. So they're, you know, whoever is here now, you know, speaking as part of it. There's like a long history of the temple that has been supported by so many different aspirants over the years, and including many of those in the current clergy program as well. And so I do this every month for all your input and participation and support. And do it a single month for always pushing ahead. That's up.
Okay, just a final word. Something I've talked about before, but maybe not recently. And I've talked about it in class every once in a while. But this is something that will not be a surprise to you who have experienced it. But I'm just trying to put it into kind of words what the teaching engine or foundational model of the Kemet University is. Basically, it is a idea of melding the ancient apprenticeship model with the modern technology, online and virtual systems. And it is done by the teaching is not meant to be to have a specific beginning and end. It is meant to be ongoing, but progressive, not monotonous, but progressive. And that is accomplished with the interaction of the teacher and the students. So it begins with the research and the production of books and audio lectures by the teacher, and recordings are made of those. And so you have content to be used online and in person. So the book and audio and video studies are self-paced. This is another key, as opposed to having a specific, like a regular university the way they are today, where you go to, get specific credits. You go to this course this fall, then you do the one next spring, and then if you stay over the summer, and then you accumulate, and then you're finished at a specific time. You become a freshman, sophomore, senior, and all that kind of thing, junior, senior, etc. And then the specific in these kinds of studies, there's no specific end. There can be a specific beginning for a person coming into it, but the teaching is ongoing, and it always has been, from the beginning of time, if you will, because that is the purview of the divine that has left the knowledge to be learned. And there's always knowledge to be learned or honed, or for the nuances. And so those books, reports, and assignments that students do, they're reviewed and in class, gone over by the teacher, and then the students are able to express their thoughts and their feelings, their understandings about the teaching, and all that is supervised. So they make sure that they have a correct understanding, correct thought process. That interaction is itself recorded and added to the content of the program, so it's available to other students coming along. And so and also the same assignments are studied and reviewed, and the students go over them, and those are reviewed, and those are recorded, and so it's an ongoing process. And it's interesting that I don't recall in any class that we've done that where a teaching has been repeated without nuance. Like a teaching, like if a student is going over assignment number 1, number 2, number 3, this year, in a couple of years from now, a new student may come in and they will see the recording of that engagement, that exchange with the student's teacher. They'll see what the other student said, and they'll see what the teacher said about it. But it won't be exactly the same when they have to go over it in the future, and even review that past assignment of that past interaction from a couple of years ago. It won't be the exact same, but it'll be just as relevant. because there will be nuances. You can't cover all the nuances in one lecture or in one class, and that's why the teaching revolves. It's like cyclical, and so it's meant to go on, really not indefinitely, but as long as time and space continues, and there's a capacity for people to, for human animals who can cognize to be able to breathe and read and think about philosophy. So there's a review of the assignments for all to rehear. So people in class, some people may be newer to the class, some people may have been in for a couple of years. They will all rehear the teaching that was the original teaching that was given, and they will hear it though with the nuances, with different perspectives. If they go and re-listen to past class recordings, they'll also invariably hear different nuances, and not every single word in a post or in a student assignment is specifically covered, but there's what is covered is specially selected, and I say specially selected, but it's kind of a whatever feels right at the time, whatever the energies of the student, of the audience, all that comes in, what everybody needs to hear for the time. So not every single sentence is covered also, but it'll be covered invariably in a different session. So all that is the reason why the going over it helps to hone and rehear the teaching and make it inculcated, make it seated stronger in the personality and the mind. So these are our keys. The self-paced aspect is actually an important key also, especially dealing with philosophy. It's not like dealing with mathematics or chemistry or some other discipline where you have specific things you can learn and within a certain amount of time. So the learning of the teaching really doesn't occur in a specific time. It occurs in time, but not a specific time. Some people may need a short time to get it. Some people may need a longer time. But once people do get it, also the more advanced ones, they still enjoy the nuances that come out as well, and also in the remembrance of how they were when they were learning the teaching, and also they can also use that information, those techniques, and that content to conduct their own teaching, and it revolves and it continues spiraling upward and onward. And so you rinse and repeat, like they say. So and the program is ongoing. So it's repetitious in a way, which is part of a teaching, a purposeful teaching instrument, a purposeful teaching technique. But it is not to allow to become monotonous or boring. And so the repetition helps to inculcate it. It helps to hone. It helps to continue cleansing out the erroneous thinking or feelings, and so that's the purpose of it. And also, it provides a opportunity for experiencing in community with others of like mind, and that is another kind of dynamic that affects people regardless of where they may be on Earth. When you're gathered in one room, it becomes very intense, but the energy is still there in a more diffuse way, but it's still there because you know that other people are listening at the same time and they're studying and they're interested, and that has an effect. Okay. So we will go ahead and conclude there, and looking forward to more years of Kemet University and ongoing studies and the evolution of the teaching program. What's up? So we will take a break here and come back in a few minutes to discuss the new book launch.
Jag sen married sen. Me and Senti. Hey, brother, beloved brother. Come to your sisters. Dua Asar, married Asar. Adorations to Asar, beloved Asar. Dua Asar, Nehast Asar. Adorations to Asar. Come back to us, be resurrected Asar. Dua Asar, Unefer Netera. Adorations to Asar, the beautiful existence. Dua Asar, Per Abdu. Adorations to Asar, the innermost being in Abdu. Dua Asar, Neb Jeta. Adorations to Asar, Lord of Forever. Dua Asar, Sutedhe. Adorations to Asar, King of Eternity.
Dua Asar Unefer Netera. Dua Asar Heratu. Dua Asar Netera. Dua Asar Sutenhe. Dua Asar Unefer Netera. Dua Asar Heratu. Dua Asar Yasen meritsen bien senti Tuasar meritasar Tuasar mehasasar Tuasar penetra
Uja, everyone have sound? Testing, 1, 2, 3, testing.
Nisabai, we have sound. That's it.
Okay, do it to everyone for staying over for the new book launch. We'll do an opening prayer for this section. You may unmute as well. Duasad unefernetera, duasad herabdu, duasad nebjeta, duasad sutenhe.
Duasa unefenetera, duasa herapu, duasa nebjeta, duasa sutenhe.
Uja, everyone again. This is a kind of official launch. The book has been out for I guess almost a month now, about a month, and although we had to postpone some of the programs that we've had, the meetings and different things, and some of the things that we're doing, we're occupied. So this is the latest in a special book series that I started several years ago, mostly based on the proceedings of the conferences, the annual Natarian conferences. And this is a kind of special one, which I'm going to discuss in a few reasons in a few minutes. But basically what this one does, and there have been different themes that we've covered in the different conferences, and there are scriptures related to those themes. So it gives me an opportunity to translate those. And I usually work on those for anywhere from a month to 6 weeks before the conferences. Some like this one, it took much longer to prepare the scripture for the conference, and also to the presentation. And actually, this there was a conference like that occurred years ago that I started working on it too late, and I did not have. Also, this is before I had the electronic systems that I had, and I was back then, 15, 20 years ago, kind of thing. I used to be working even during the programs to put the slides and things together. But the years before that, when we had what do you call those little those slides? I can't remember what they called them. The little square ones.
Slides?
No, there's another word for them. Yeah, before we had PowerPoint, we had to work on the presentations to to get the little slide things together before the presentation. So had to work on putting it together and then photographing it, and then getting it to the photographic place for developing, and then getting it back, and then putting it together, putting it on the light table and putting them all in order and things like that. Um, and that was a toil. So the PowerPoint came in at about 2002. We started using PowerPoint, and I remember because the first time I really used it was doing the class at FIU, Florida International University. I taught as an adjunct, one semester, and never going back after that for sure, from the slides, and then so that opened up more time. But then what is crazy about human life is that you have more capacity. How did the saying go? It's higher capacity breeds higher ambition. So it's like when people live without cell phones, but when they have cell phones, then they can talk more, they can do more. So it doesn't really help to make life better. What it helps is for you to do more stuff and to do more things and to be concerned about something ringing in your pocket or something like that. And also now, of course, getting cancer. So there was also a transition to how to use the systems in the best way possible.
Overhead projectors.
No, it's not an overhead. Overhead is the other one, where you write on
No.
the thing and then it comes out through the top. The image comes out through the top.
These are all interesting, like old school.
Yeah.
Vintage. They're vintage.
They're vintage. Yeah, the classical. So you have to find a balance between the capacity and or at least pace it. And what happened with this book is that I pretty much knew, kind of decided earlier in the year, and then I kind of made like a little outline, and then I got a tree idea, which I'll explain in a bit, and then I was able to kind of map it out, and I said, okay, I'll get to it, and then I started to realize how much content there really was to work with, and I said, okay, I better start working on it. So I worked on it last summer of last year. I started working on it like in summer, June, little by little and here and there, while doing other things. And then I can't remember what the reason was, but I took a break, and I didn't get back to it for a couple of months, like 6 weeks or something like that, maybe 2 months. And then I realized, wow, I think I'm backed up here with this. And not only that, I discovered an additional scripture, which was the Chester Beatty that I knew about, but I forgot about it. And I said, oh wow! So I'm really, and it's hundreds of verses to go through, and so then I was really huffing and puffing, working it going into fall of last year, and actually it was not finished by the time of the conference, and in a way it was okay, because the section of the book that was left out was a whole section that is really for a mature audience anyway. It was not really appropriate to bring it in in like a general kind of presentation. And there were a couple of other little things. At the end, we ran out of time, so some of the section that I was going to present, that was ready to be presented, it was kind of like rushed through, and some things were kind of glossed over. And so hopefully what we'll do in the upcoming conference, which is that we'll do a review. We will go over the sections that were missed, and actually we will go over in more detail the Perta Peru sections, the Book of the Dead references, and there may be a couple of scriptures added as well, and not may, there will be a couple of extra things, and that there might be enough to make a small volume 2 adjunct to this one sometime next spring. We will see about that. So this is, in my view, one of the most important books that I've produced, on a par with the Temple of the Soul, on a par with the Hymns of Amun, on the par with the Tree of Life, any of like the really they're really big kind of book projects that I've done. And I'll begin also by saying it's interesting that I had way at the beginning I had created a book, but it wasn't really based on a direct scripture as the way I do it for the last 10 years or so. I was doing more translating, but more in a philosophical context, and those were kind of the earlier books that you saw. And there was one called the Ancient Egyptian Bible was the original name of it, and that was the Osirian Resurrection. And that was there was another book, a smaller book that I had made back in the late 90s, about the Osirian Resurrection, and those two were melded into what is now African Religion Volume 4, Osirian Theology. Now this book, it has the similar content, but this one is more based on the direct scriptural translation itself. And I like doing that because it brings out certain nuances that a kind of a straight philosophical discussion that you would not necessarily bring out, because these are items or items of information based on the nuances of the scripture itself, the hieroglyphs, and the grammar. So that, along with which brings out philosophical issues, mythic issues, and mystic issues. And so, yeah, metaphysical as well. So what I decided to do is to collect the main scriptures that have direct, how shall we say, renditions of versions of the Osirian myth, and to put those together in one volume. And to my knowledge, well, I don't think it's been discovered any one place in the ancient scriptures where it was all together, like different aspects of the myth all kind of together in a sequential order and things like that. So remember what I said, these are the main scriptures. There are other scriptures, maybe some minor scriptures, little pieces here and there, but these are the main scriptures that render the main episodes and teachings of the Osirian resurrection. So what I decided was to put all those together. So I'm not aware that it was all together in ancient times, and no one has done that in modern times either that I'm aware of. To put the scriptures together. That's number one. That's one attainment, and the other attainment is to do a not just an interlinear translation, which is just a single line translation, but doing a trilinear translation. And so there are several challenges that we'll discuss because of the sheer volume. I discussed that a little bit, and issues, challenges with the editing of it, and then challenges with typesetting of it. It is one of the more difficult books for typesetting that I've done, and maybe as difficult or maybe more than even the Temple of the Soul, which is an even larger book. But in any case, it all turned out, as far as I can see, wonderful, and it's coming out a little more costly because it's in color, but I think it's worthwhile to have that aspect of it as well. So, Egyptian Book of the Dead, Hieroglyph Translation, Volume 6. Some of these points I discussed just now. The first time is all the main sections of the resurrection are presented in one volume, and in the trilinear translation format. The book organization was a challenge, and the answer to that challenge was the analogy of the tree. The idea came maybe because of the tree of life, that as a tree grows, you have different branches that come up in different sections, going towards the top in a progressive way. So we could use that idea, to make it understood that there's a trunk of the tree, and there's a unitary teaching, a unitary myth, and different episodes or sections of the myth are told in different branches as the tree grows. So there was a translation challenge of doing the sheer volume, like I said, a typesetting challenge. Typesetting challenge is you're doing trilinear translations, keeping all those translations straight, all underneath each other, making sure that the scripture strip stays within the margins of the page, and then as you're going through, everything kind of moves, so then you have to reset. So it was fun to try to keep up with that, how everything goes all over the place, and that perhaps there's a better program I can use, but the other programs don't have all the other features that I need, like being able to make a table of contents, an index, and different things like that, making notes while progressing with the production. So author editorial work. So in a way, there are two editorial, how should we say, passes that the book manuscript is getting. And I do my editorial work. Sabajad did her own editorial work as well. And so a part of the, I usually refer to this as a Menku process. I've explained it before as a chiseling, as a sculpting. And I usually, what I found over the years is that I need 4 times, I need to go through a book 4 times before it's in good shape. May not be 100% perfect, but it's in good shape. And usually a regular book, when I do that, it'll be pretty decent. You find, a few mistakes here and there, but it'll be, Um, and so this one was challenging because of all the editorial, the typesetting issues and the translation issues. Also, there was a lot of images in the book, so it made the book larger. So it could be unwieldy. It didn't get to be as unwieldy as Temple of the Soul, though. I had to actually break that book into chapters, and then it had to be put together with a different program in the final version. But that was a whole other story. So I did that my own editorial process, and then so that was the pre-typesetting was done to keep everything together. It was going along. Did my editorial process, then I gave it to Sebejah, and she took a while to go through it as well. And then after that, I had to go and re-edit and typeset again, and also fix any errors that she might have found and things like that. So that was kind of the
I went
process.
through it twice, really. First part was we went through it twice. First was for the presentation for the conference.
Okay, yeah.
I actually went through it there quickly for that. And then, but that was more in that was not in a book format.
This presentation format.
Right. And then went through it in the book format.
So, Sebejah, you want to say any words about your editorial process?
Just what you're aware of, that it took me until, when did I finish it? When did I give it back to you? January.
August? Was it?
Is that correct?
That took me another month to get it going, to get it going again.
Yeah, I was telling Sarah, this one was a little bit challenging, because, like, say, the Temple of Asar, which is a very large book, but a lot of it is writing, like in English, about the about the different panels. So it's like panel, and then there's a lot of just writing, narrative about that. Then there's a panel, then there's a translation, but then there's a lot of writing about that. This one was just transliteration, contextual, transliteration, and I'm not also familiar with the glyphs, all the glyphs that were used, so I had to, I didn't look things up, but I got the hang of comparing and see what was said, and usually I can remember if I saw something recently that was one way and then something was another way, so I'll leave that as questions for tomorrow, things like that. So it was a little bit more, yeah, it took me a really long time to do it. And it seemed like it was just such little text, because it's just the little, 3 little lines. Come on, Sebejah, what's wrong with you? 3 little lines, 3 little lines at a time. But those, the transliteration, the translation, and then the contextual, right? Come on, what's wrong with you? It's not a big deal. You don't have all that reading to do. But it was, I find it a little bit intense. And the glyphs also were not as they are in the temple panels. It was more like it's more erratic type of glyphs in some of them. More like they have a kind of
it's not like cursive, I guess. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there too.
So some of it. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So that was also challenging. The baby that was having difficulty being born, long labor.
But I think it turned out well. So these are the main scriptural sources that were used to bring the book together. The stela of Amun-Mose is like the trunk of the tree. And then we have the Medinic stela, and the Chesapeake papyrus. These talk about the main parts of the saga. How Osiris was killed and they found his body, and then the fight between Heru and Set and all that kind of thing. And some of these scriptures were reflected in panels of some of the temples, and the three main temples are Temple of Asar, Temple of Set, and Temple of Heru. And then there are some adjunct scriptures that were used that reference the Osirian resurrection. And there are a couple of sections of the Book of the Dead that were included in the book, and that were I'm not sure if we fully presented them at the conference, but
You'll be presenting.
Hmm?
You'll be presenting at this conference.
Well, they'll be presented at this upcoming conference, along with the missed section at the end that was rushed, and some additions also that were not presented at the last conference. Now, of course, like I was explaining earlier in the Kemet University anniversary, that even if we're going to do a review, you can bet that some nuances are going to come out that did not come out in the first run, shall we say. Also, something I didn't mention in the anniversary talk earlier, that and I mentioned that teaching is something cyclical, and that the example of that, or maybe the first example of that, although not first, the really that's been ongoing in the level 1 program, but in the Temple of Set course, the cycle has restarted, and we are doing a second run through of the Temple of Set scripture, and that could be done ad infinitum, really, and so you're not going there necessarily for new information, but you do get nuances. So you do get that. Really, what you're going for is an opportunity to be close to the teaching, to the living teaching, as it is being disseminated, as it is being spoken, and to be in that mental space with your teacher or with other students, and with other students. That's really what it's all about, because that helps you to grow, cleanses feelings. It helps you to grow intellectually, to hone your understanding, to be more clear and more purified, which also means more sanctified, more capacity to gain insight into the experience of the teaching, to realize the teaching. So this is, and I was thinking about this, although I don't know what time it would be. I thought this would be a good scripture to use for like an ongoing talk. And we did do an ongoing talk on this back in, I think, 1997 or something like that, based on the earlier book, the philosophical. So if we did this one, it would be based on the direct hieroglyphic text. And then once we get to beginning to end and finish the book, then you restart. You restart from the beginning, and you get, more nuances that were not there. But also, by the time you finish it, you might have forgotten some things, and so it refreshes and keeps it at the top of mind. So that's how sages have devised, a way to work with the teaching. And along with that, there are some other tools that sages came up with. One of them is ritual. So you do, specific recurring rituals annually. It gives you an opportunity to prepare for those, to think about those, to engage in those. And then when that one's finished, there's another one coming up. And when all those are finished for the year, you start over again, rinse and repeat. And that's how it works. But it's not boring, because it's enjoyable and it's fun, especially when you're growing with the teaching. It's fulfilling, and allows you to have awet ab, which is expansion of heart. So this is the analogy of the tree that was used that I was talking about earlier, and this is how the scriptures were placed in the rendition of the book. And each section of the book, when this comes out, this image is presented, so you know kind of where you are on the tree. So each time when you go through the book, these are like chapters in a way, in a sense, sections. So you'll know where you are, or which scripture you're working with, where is it in relation to the others, et cetera, et cetera. This is one of the bonus items that was going to be presented at the upcoming conference, that will be presented at the upcoming conference. This is a section from the Temple of Set. One of these panels was presented at the conference, but another one was not, and it's the one that's on the top left. And so we will be looking at this, but not but, I'm saying and, it will need some time, because this is Greek period hieroglyph text, and I would have to look at it closely to do the best possible decipherment. And that it's not the period that I work with most. Mostly I work with the classical, New Kingdom, Middle Kingdom, and but what this is rendering is an image of Asar here you see in the center, and there's a tree going around him, and that's one of the aspects of the myth, that when Asar was killed, his body was thrown into the Nile, and then it came to rest on the shores of Syria, modern day Syria, and then a tree grew around it. And there's actually an image of the same concept in the Dendera temple, which we may bring that one in too. I have to see if I have a good enough image of that if we can see some of the script. But like I say, this is the Greek period, so it's not something I work with all the time, but it is nevertheless part of the tradition. And as you can see here, they are following that tradition, and the goddesses Aset and Nebuchadnezzar are adoring Asar. But I will take a look at the script on both sides to see what wonders come from it. A couple of close-ups that we have here. Okay, that was, I guess, all I had there for that. I was going to actually go now to the book itself. Okay, here is the book series that this is a part of, and of course these books are all available, and they will remain available in perpetuity, as long as there's because everything is done by on demand. Since about the year 2000, there was a big switch in the book industry from the printing press to an on-demand printing system. So you don't have to create, a bunch like 1,000 books at a time and have them in a store in a warehouse. So they will remain always available. This is an image of Sabaja as the editor. She made a forward there. This is information about how the trilinear translation system is developed, how the scripture sheet is made into strips, and the strips are made into lines of text that are translated with the trilinear system. In the beginning here, I'm not going to go over them now, so we'll wait for the conference for these. These are some of the references in the Egyptian Book of the Dead of the Osirian resurrection. And like I say, we will go over those, and I may add a few items here as well. One of the challenges was keeping the verse numbering system also in line, because you can stick some text or push in the return, the enter button. It used to be return on the old typewriters, and it could throw out the numbering system, and it happened a couple of times. Then you have to go redo a whole section of numbering, so it was not easy to keep it all together. The sheer volume of text and accounting for each glyph was difficult, and Sabaja assisted a lot with that. So I think it's a very high quality presentation of the teaching. I think it came out pretty well, I would say. So the images you see here mostly came from the conference. Most of these do not occur in ancient Egyptian panels or temples. They are created by me or Sabaja to assist the visualization of the scripture. And in this particular book, you'll notice that there really is no commentary, right? There's no commentary in this at all. There's no glosses.
So it's sharing. It's just
There's no glossing at all. And it was specifically done because it would be too much. Like you need a whole, the book would have been twice as large, and it would have taken twice as long, which means that you would not see it maybe until next year. But I really did not intend to do that anyway. What I intended to do was to do as much of the glossing as possible in the contextual level of the text. So you may notice that the contextual, which is the third level of this is the transliteration, translation, contextual translation. So you'll notice that the contextuals may be larger than usual because of bringing in some more rendition of the philosophical insight that is related to the text. And it's meant to do that so that it'll be more flowing in a kind of storytelling sense. And you remember I mentioned earlier that the earlier version of this title, the very first book was called the Ancient Egyptian Bible, and that did not go over well when I put it out there to sell. People didn't like it because the people who are mostly reading the books were like Afrocentric or people in certain bookstores, and they were down on Christianity. They didn't want to hear anything about any Bible or anything like that. But really,
Party soiled Egyptian yoga, like two things together.
but at least that stuck. But a Bible is, many people. But that's funny because when I started researching and looking into these things, a lot of people were referring to the Book of the Dead as a Bible, and a Bible is a kind of collection of myths, of some mythic teaching that may have mythic wisdom in it. It could even have metaphysics or mysticism, but it's primarily a mythic treatise. A mythic treatise is a set of writing that records uh, the the plot, the kind of uh, recall memories about a relationship of like a legendary relationship between humans and spirits or gods, goddesses. Um, it is part of a language that goes beyond intellect. It is a kind of language of the soul, a language of the heart. It's more related to feeling, but it can, like I said, allude to wisdom aspects, insights, uh, uh, especially insights into the nature of humanity, the nature of the soul, the nature of the divine, and the relationship between humans and the divine. Um, it is not meant to be a historical treatise. It is not meant to be a literal treatise in the sense of an empirical, physical, literal, historical. It can be uh, real in terms of the nature of the spiritual relationship with the divine. That is a real aspect of myth that can relate a spiritual truth if that myth is put together in a proper way and is treated in a proper way. If the myth is regarded as some kind of historical document, then really the deeper benefit of the myth is being thwarted, and that's what happens in faith-based type religions that believe that assign historicity to the myth or literalness, literality to a myth. Then you lose the spiritual transcendental qualities of the myth, and that's unfortunate. So you notice that the the glosses are larger. Uh, gloss is a gloss is a kind of Middle East, not middle, what is it? Middle Ages term when they used to make Bibles and they make like a little gloss, little writings around the text or little explanations and different things like that. So really, the third level of the translation is a kind of gloss in that context, and like I said, this is one of the panels from the temple section that did make it into the book, but the section panel that we're going to go into is here, and so we'll see what that turns out to be when we get to the conference. So we visited a few of these temples that have references to aspects of the myth, and some of them are not specifically covered in some of these scriptures, but they are covered scripturally on the temple walls. And some of these sections were presented in the Temple of the Soul book also. But they were appropriate to bring in here, so. So you notice that sometimes what will happen is that we will be working through our tree trunk scripture, which is the Stela of Amen Moses, and then we will go to the Meta Stela, say, and then we will come back to the Amen Moses, and that's what happened here. There's a couple of lines. We come to back to Amen Moses, and then we go now to the Temple of Aset. So so we're moving kind of in a circuitous way, but in a methodical, purposeful, planned way as well. Now we're coming back from the Temple of Set back to Meta Stela. But just remembering some of these sections. So if there's going to be a replay, I think it'll be nice to to recall some of these wonderful things that were covered. And so keep in mind that these the book is designed so that you could go doing a study looking at the transliteration, the translation, and then the contextual. But I tried to write it so that pretty much from beginning to end, you could actually also just read the contextual, and it should be a coherent, for the most part, a coherent, uh, continuous text, like almost like a novel in a way. So it's written kind of with that in mind also. So like one day you feel like just reading the contextual, you can go ahead and do that. Sometimes you may feel more devotional, so you want to read the transliteration, chant it out. Some days you might want to get into a deep intellectual study of a particular scriptures or something, and then go through the transliteration and look at each word under the transliteration, and you can even engage into that. If you have a dictionary, go back and look at it, and then you read the translation, and then you go into the contextual, and you see where the words from the translation come into the contextual, because that's the thing, that the contextual is always anchored in the level 2 translation. Level 2 translation is anchored in the transliteration. The transliteration is anchored in the original scripture. So we're never allowed to escape or to go into say something without a basis of the scripture. So it's anchored, and you can trace back that anchor for yourself. I was trying to think what other. I was going through. I was remembering some of the interesting nuances, and we'll cover those again in the conference. This is one of the sections that was left out of the conference presentation that I was talking about earlier. And but if you have the book, you can go back and look at it now. Basically, the section where Set tried to rape Heru, and everything that happened after that. How the criminal and unrighteousness of Set was turned on him in the end. And that's, of course, a Montian rule. You know, this might be one of the biggest contextuals in the whole book. And this is a section that we kind of rushed through at the end, so we'll give this a proper treatment. This is the sections of the wall panels from the temple of Heru at Edfu that discuss essentially the battle between Heru and Set. And in a way, it shows how if you have God on your side, that it's not going to be so much of a battle, it's going to be kind of a massacre of the unrighteous forces. But the way that it was done gives us special insights into the serpent power. It gives us special insights into the nature of the spiritual battle of life. So there's some metaphysics. There are some special insights about the special aspect of Heru called Behudet, the relationship with Ra. And of course, Heru Behudet is us. And a special aspect of Goddess Aset as lioness, which is not seen very often. And Goddess Astarte, or Asjardet. That's the ancient Egyptian. It's Astarte or Astarte in the Middle Eastern, and it's Asjardet in the Kemetic. Here again, there's some special teachings that we had to stop because there was so much, and we usually do like an after conference thing also, which we did not do this year. So I guess in a way, this conference will be our after conference presentation. This is a special section here that was totally missed because of time. that we'll get into. It's a kind of directional matrix that is being discussed. But we'll leave that till when we get there. It's like an insight into Heru Behudet's all-encompassing nature. You know, the Ur-Uaji, the winged sun disk. And then we end up back at the Stela of Amenmosa. For the conclusion. So what is supposed to be happening through the study of the myth is that a spiritual aspirant learns about the nature, the true nature of self. And what I mean true nature, I'm not necessarily talking about the mystic ultimate discovery. I'm talking about the nature from a mythic perspective. That you are not just some animal roaming around the earth. You have a higher kind of parentage. You have a higher destiny. You have a higher relationship with the divine. That is your legacy, your goal in life. There is such a thing as the divine. That's something you learn through the myth. And there is a kind of way of discovering that. And so in a way, it's like thinking about the tree, you know, the bottom is like the foundational aspect. Learning through the mythic episodes and the experiences with the myth, leading one to discover higher forms of relationship with the divine, and in so doing, leading to a proper facing of the challenges of life and leading to ultimate spiritual victory. And that is what occurs in the myth as it needs to occur in the life. Because the myth is rendering a kind of spiritual truth, as we discussed earlier, about the soul. And so it is perennially true for every soul and relates the abiding nature of the divine, even through the struggles of life, even through the inimical forces that are challenging the conscious awareness and the spiritual awakening of the soul. So that is what the myth is doing. So the myth is like a journey, as you saw, from becoming ignorant and dying to a rebirth, a kind of struggle or challenge against the forces of unrighteousness and ultimate victory, and becoming a master of one's life, of one's conscious awareness, one's existence. And so that is what the scriptures are helping to do. Now there are mythic scriptures, and that is what the Osirian resurrection scriptures are. And then there are some metaphysical scriptures, and that's more like the Book of the Dead. And but the Book of Dead has some references to the Osirian resurrection, and so it is it is, and so the reason it's presented, the scriptures are presented at the beginning of the book so that you can, and the question is put to you, or not so much a question as something for you to notice, that you go read through the Book of the Dead, and then you read through the mythic scriptures, the Osirian resurrection, and then you're asked to come back to the Book of the Dead and see what you think the second time. Reading it first without the benefit of knowing about the myth versus reading it after you know the myth. So when it references it, oh, you know what's all behind it. You know the depth of all that is there. They're not going through reams and reams of scriptures about the mythic aspect. They're referencing. Oh, you know when Set threw excrement in the eyes of Heru. Now, if you go through the scripture, you know all that happened there. It's one thing, but if you have like a kind of reference, maybe you know a little something about it, maybe you don't. You know, this Set must be a bad guy throwing excrement, and you might even think that it's actually real physical excrement. You know, referencing the messing up of his spiritual vision. So that was the idea there. So you can go and experiment with that. And the idea is that what is behind that idea, that statement, is that typically and properly myth should come before metaphysics. You should not be going to metaphysics before being seated in and purified through a mythic process. That's the idea. Because you know, if you do that, it might be, if you go through the metaphysics first, you might, you know, discover certain things or think that you know certain things, but you don't have a devotional perspective. You don't have cleansed feelings about what you're doing, and so the metaphysics can be distorted. If in the book, the metaphysics might talk about you know, breathing techniques. It might talk about you know, becoming you know, motionless or silence. It might talk about uh, you know, things that happen after death, et cetera, et cetera. Um, it takes on a different context if you don't have a mythic component, you know, related to it. So that's an interesting point that was trying to bring out there. Okay, so that's all that I was going to comment on, really. So, Bajai, you have anything you want to say? Any comments or questions about the book?
Would you say, Sebama?
Mm-hmm.
I would just like to share that I find that this book is not only visually um, enticing, it brings that extra layer that you are, I guess, looking for when you're going through a book of this magnitude. I I appreciated that you shared about how the you can just read the contextual and all that, but I have found myself with this book particularly really going through each level of the hieroglyphs and trying to decipher them and put them into my understanding of the words and then seeing yours and whether that came together or uh, needed clarification, which most of the time it did. But I'm not that far into it. I think I'm up to page 80. But I just wanted to say Dua for bringing this very nefer and important work. And I can see how it will complement the conference, this upcoming conference, as well as the replays, uh, because it brings it right to life again. So Dua, that's it.
Did you get your color version?
I did. It is in color. Dua. I was thinking maybe I should have saved that black and white. It would have been worth something.
The color really brings it out. It really, and it came out very well. I was surprised. So they must be improved on their systems over there. Okay, Dua. Any other questions or comments about the book?
If they find errors, they can submit them. We always appreciate that for future editing.
Okay, Dua to you all, and Dua for following the teaching and for being interested, and for being sensitive enough to see the value in the teaching and this legacy that has been left to us by our spiritual ancestors, and the opportunity that we have to explore and discover, practice with it, especially in our times when we need all the spiritual force, and I think that this book, as much as any of the top ones that I mentioned earlier, that I think this can be a very strong, powerful tool for advancing the spiritual practice and the spiritual evolution.
Sebama.
Uja.
Uja. So I missed most of the of your lecture, but is there a particular for the conference? Is there something from the? Is there a particular chapter from the book we can focus on, or to give us the more insight when we attend the conference?
I can't say right now because it's going to be there is going to be an overview, and then we are going to cover some special highlights, but I don't know what those are yet. So I would say the important thing would be to attend the replays. I think that would be really good, and that will give a good overview, well-rounded. But I can't say specifically any particular section that will be covered or that will be focused on yet. I know the parts that we did not cover before will be covered now, and maybe some new special nuances I may bring out of some of the other sections, but I don't know what those are yet. To list them, to have a general idea. But so I say attend the replays. I think that'd be the best thing that you can do.
Okay, Dua, Sebama.
Dua. Okay, so Kepra says Dua for writing this book, Katep, and Dua for that. Bastu Baket says Dua Ur Sabaja for your editing expertise. Asarma says Dua Sabama and Sabaja for bringing forth the teachings. Dua Sarma. Phoenix, Aspiring Phoenix Hatep Mat says, much Dua Sabai for giving a very special Nefer introduction to the book. I will be purchasing a copy soon. Sarma says, Dua, it is a Nefer addition to the PMH collection. Bastoaku says, Uja, in registering for the conference, just a reminder to use the coupon code prior to October 31st. There's a discount if you use the code. And you have a link there. Okay, do it to everyone. And we will, like I said, we'll hopefully resume the mock discussions next month. And there will be a Kemet Diet and COVID, I believe, coming up next week. And I'm going to have some new researches. We're going to go over the news in the last month. And then there's going to be new researches, and hoping to be able to do the launch of the new supplement site as well. We'll see how that goes. But I think you're going to be interested to see the new researches that I've been doing as well. Every month we're adding to that knowledge base, and some wonderful things coming up from that. Okay. So Basaku, you can go ahead and set that up if you haven't done it already for next Monday, and at 7:30. And I think that's it. Nefertemur says, Dua Sabaima and Sabaja for all your dedication to show us how to reawaken ways. What's up? Dua Sabaima Sabaja. Oh, no, that was Aspar Natasha. It's scrolling up, so I was reading somebody else's. Nefertemur says, Dua Sabaima and Sabaja for bringing forth the teachings. The book was purchased. Aspire Natasha says, Dua Sabaima Sabaja for all your dedication to show us how to reawaken ways. Suaku says, Dua Sabaima Sabaja for your nefer commitment and dedication to the teachings for enlightenment. What's up? And Dua to all of you. Dua sa nefer netera, Dua sa he radu, Dua sa nemjet, Dua sa sutan he. Om Asara Setheru. Om Asara Setheru. Om Asara Setheru. Om Asara Setheru. Amasua Panete, Sausumete Panete, Radwanuma, Kedipaharu. Amasun Panete, Sausumete Panete, Radwanuma, Kedipaharu. Om Hete, Pete, Pete. Om Hete, Pete, Pete. What's up?